Heathen Church. Happy Sabbath and welcome. And good evening, happy Sabbath and welcome to those of you who've joined us back online. Welcome to our evening service. Thank you for spending the Sabbath with us. I pray you will be richly blessed as we spend the last remaining moments of the Sabbath together. We will start with an opening hymn. I'll ask that you please take up your hymnals and turn to hymn number 462. Blessed Assurance, hymn number 462. 462. Blessed assurance, Jesus is mine. Oh, what a foretaste of glory divine, heir of salvation, purchase of God, born of His Spirit, washed in His blood. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. Perfect submission, perfect delight, visions of rapture now burst on my sight. Angels descending, bring from above echoes of mercy, whispers of love. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. Perfect submission, all is at rest. I in my Savior am happy and blessed, watching and waiting, looking above, filled with His goodness, lost in His love. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. Amen. I'll now turn it over to Pastor Lloyd Grubb, who will be doing our evening service on coronary heart disease.
Good evening again, everyone, and welcome to our even health presentation. Hopefully, you had a blessed day thus far, and you're ready to take on a lot of information, some information that I'm going to share that are very important to deal with coronary heart disease, or could I say various different problems of the coronary artery. And this is what I'll be sharing with you here. So thanks for coming by. As I say, hopefully you'd invite someone. If not, when we are finished here, the videos will be posted on either YouTube or Facebook. You can share with those you love. So with that, we'll start with a short prayer. Our Father who art in heaven, I thank you for the blessings of knowing thee and for the blessings of getting to know more, dear Lord, the creative works, especially you creating us and how our bodies work. May you bless us, dear Lord, that we might always seek to learn more about our bodies. This is my prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. So welcome again. And as we go into this topic, natural solutions, we're looking at natural solutions to deal with coronary heart disease. And as I start, I might say to you up front that the information I'm sharing here is important to think on. As I say, look over the information again, because it's heavily related to how we will deal with coronavirus and similar other type of virus that has to do with immune response. So the aim of the presentation is taking a detailed look at one of the comorbidities of coronavirus, and why address known sicknesses you already have. So there are sicknesses that you and I already have. And the big takeaway that we have here, it's important to address these major sicknesses that we already have. If you have something that you know you've fight with, you struggled with, and this is something that is a problem to you, it's important for you to address it. So the takeaway point when this is all said and done, and you'll see as I go through the information, if you have a known problem that is plaguing you, it's best to address those problems, because what's going to happen is as you get older or whatever it is that's going on in your body, those problems get worse. And as they get worse, it will put you in a very terrible disadvantage. So this is what I want to encourage you as we move forward here to address these various different problems. So this is what we're doing. We're taking aim with that for this presentation. So in Genesis, a biblical wisdom just to start to share with you. In Genesis chapter 1 verse 29, and God said, behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree in which is the fruit of the tree yielding seed, to you it shall be for meat. And so the Lord intended that our food that we eat was a plant-based diet. So our bodies, ultimately, when we all said and done, our bodies were created for a plant-based diet, to eat plants. So some quick information here to put it in context, the seriousness of what I'm presenting and how it would deal with coronavirus. If you look at this chart that I have up on the board, this chart I have up on the board or up on your screen is a very important illustrative point of how these type of comorbidities work with coronavirus. So I don't know, COVID-19 or coronavirus, it's a disease that infects, primarily you're going to face problem in your lungs. But if you notice here, this is from it was a study that was done in Italy of patients up until April 20th. So as you know, we're a few days off from April 20th. So this is the latest figures that came out of what people died from when they had coronavirus as of April 20th. And notice here, the top of it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Five of the top 5 things that people die from that they had. Now, what it is with the numbers might not seem to make sense because this would be more than 100%. But some patients had multiple sicknesses. So most of the sicknesses, as you notice, ischemic heart disease, atrial fibrillation, so the atria had problem with the arteries, heart failure, stroke, hypertension. So if you look at this, most of it has to do with the heart or to do with the circulatory system. So if somebody would say to me, why is it that you think it's important to why would you connect heart problem or blood circulation problem, coronary artery problem, all of these problems to like something like coronavirus? This presentation will stand on its own as to how to. So I'm going to deal with primarily how to keep your circulation better, help your heart, help your arteries open up and stuff like that. But I just want to tell you, in the background in my mind, and I'm explaining as we go along, you'll see that this is a big circulation problem. Many people are dying. They're having their kidney failing. So that's why it says your next on the list will be type 2 diabetes. But if what we find is that they're having, many scientists are looking at it now and realizing that there's blood clot going on. So the blood is getting, having blood clot because there's an inflammatory process going on, and it blocks up the kidney, and so people die from kidney failure. People die from liver failure. People die from heart failure. People die from lung failure, but they find blood clots in the lungs. So something's going on in the blood, and the blood can't receive with COVID-19, as I'd covered before. The blood is not receiving enough oxygen. So there's something going on in the blood, and that's why I think it's very important to study how to keep healthy. Notice again, dementia. But this dementia, again, could make sense because if you're having a blood issue, well, a part of the body that receives a lot of blood and needs a lot of blood is our brain. So we keep that in mind. Notice here again, as of until April 20th, other problems, COPD, so chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. This again is a problem with the lungs, but again, many of the problems in the lung has to do with the blood. I'll explain more in the future. Active cancer in the past 5 years, chronic liver disease. So this is something we'll deal with in the future. Chronic renal failure, as I mentioned before. Dialysis. So again, back to the liver again, because the liver processes the blood for us and cleans out the gunk out of the blood. We won't talk about all of that. Respiratory failure, so failure to be able to breathe. So remember now, when we talk about COVID-19, they'll say it's a lung infection, right? And it's a lung problem. You can't breathe properly, but you're dying firstly to do with something with the upper chamber of the heart, or one of the pumping chamber of the heart, or the blood vessel, kidney failure, liver failure, everything to do with blood flow. And HIV, so weakened immune system, autoimmune disease, this is going to come up in this presentation. This is major, although it's lower on the list. And obesity. So that means you find that only 12% of people who died had obesity. So you could be slim and still go down. All of the explanation that I'm going to give in a few minutes here will explain why. This now, again, remember, our talk today is about coronary heart disease. But this is very important. COVID-19, I think, is just exposing an existing problem that we have. If we don't address these problems, it can take us down. Notice again, mortality of COVID-19 in New York now. So this is New York, and then this study was looking at from March 1st to April 4th. And it looked at 5,700 patients in New York. And what you notice here is that this was the mortality rate. So most of the people who died in New York, I think 62% or so, somewhere there, were men, and then the rest were women. And why I believe is that, I'll tell you more later, why I think more men than women. So notice there now, if the person was 18 to 35 and they went to the hospital, so these, I should have said, these are hospital admissions. These are people actually went to hospital. So between March 1st to April 4th, they studied 5,700 people who went to the hospital. Out of the 5,700 people who went to the hospital, if you were below 65 to 18, and you weren't put on vent, you had a 90% chance to live. So almost 20% of people, every 5 would die, right? This is the mortality rate. If you were 65 and older and you weren't put on vent, you just went to the hospital, probably got some oxygen, got some IV, but never get to the stage of getting on vent, you had a 26 point something percent died. Total estimate there is 23.2. Now that's an estimate because most people who are having trouble with this disease are older. So the number would be more closer to 26, but we just take an average. Also, if they were put on ventilator now, and you were below 65, and they're talking about people 65 to 18, you would die 76% of the time. That means for everybody that goes, 7 point something of them, every 10 that goes in, 7 point something of them die. If you were 65 years and older and you went to the hospital and you went on ventilator, you're 97.2% chance, 97.2% died. And so that is average of 86. So 8 point something person who went on ventilator died. So that means it was 1 point something person wouldn't die, right? So that's important to note, right? So notice here, even when they say give the person oxygen, because somebody say, well, why is this important to you? Because remember, we're talking about coronary heart disease. Giving a person oxygen, you would say, well, it's a lung disease and the lung is being infected. And so the lung, what the person needs is oxygen. But what you're finding that is that even when you give them oxygen, they're still dying at a 20-something percent. And even if you put them on, you sedate them and put them on ventilator, they're dying at about 80-something percent. But if you're over 65, it's 97.2. That's not even flipping the coin. So important to note that it's not just oxygen is needed. So when you go back and look at last week's evening presentation, it become more clear to you what's going on there, that it's not just oxygen. So there's something that's going on in the body that is causing something to do with the blood, and the blood is not picking up the oxygen, and the whole system is inflamed. So important to note, we're talking about the system itself is inflamed. and there's an inflammatory process that's going on. And so when we talk about now everything going forward here, you see why the inflammatory system going on. I put this here because I want you to be educated and to know that when I do a presentation, I'm actually not just taking past information that I've learned about any disease from various different books, but a lot of information here I'm going to share from this book. It's a book you can buy at Amazon.com. And much of the information here, not all of the information, but much. So it would be too much for me to keep citing. I'll be citing this book straight through. So I'll just tell you up front, this is where I get a good amount of information, because this book here, unlike other books dealing with coronary artery problem, this book deal with primarily the issue of inflammation. So this is where I'm going. So the issue of inflammation. So you can pick that book up if you want to get a broader sense of what I'm talking about here. But I'm going to summarize a lot of that information and share some of the stuff. So here's some information I want to share to start. So we're talking about now the heart, right? The current, not the coronavirus, but the coronary artery, or coronary heart, the heart. So the cardiovascular system consists of a heart that pumps blood and blood vessels that carry the blood to all parts of the body, then return it to the heart. The blood vessels that carry the blood away from the heart are called arteries. Those that carry it towards the heart is called veins. It is the arteries that we are concerned when we are speaking about cardiovascular disease. So the arteries is what we are concerned about, and they carry blood away from the heart. So they're sending the blood. So imagine the veins bring it back, and then it comes back in, and then it has to go out. So any problem within that system, that circulatory system, so to speak, that circulation, if there's a problem, and I'll give you an example, so the blood can't make it through the kidney, you have a problem. Can't make it through the liver, you have a problem. If you can't make it just through the arteries or to the vein, you have a problem. And so just understanding, say the person say, I have a heart problem. It might be you have a heart problem, but you might have a systemic problem that needs to be addressed. And without addressing that systemic problem, you're going to face problem. And then if you have an infection now that exacerbates it, things could fall apart real quickly. Notice here, so some histories that historical major factors linked to heart disease. So normally in the past, if you were talking to somebody that's older and they tell you, define what heart disease is, they'll say, well, the person have a lot of cholesterol. So they eat a lot of probably animal food. They have high cholesterol, or their body's making too much cholesterol. But the body has to make cholesterol because cholesterol is something that we need, especially for inflammatory process. And the body makes it and uses it. Also, we need cholesterol to produce vitamin D and other things. So cholesterol is important. So cholesterol per se is not a bad thing. Now they say, well, you have low density lipoprotein, you have high density lipoprotein, and they say, well, the high density one is better, the low density one, it oxidates too fast, and so this is going to create a problem. But the question is, why is it oxidating so fast? So we're going to talk a little bit about that later on. So elevated cholesterol is normal what they're saying, so we need to fix that. And there's nothing wrong with fixing any of these things on the list, on the board, but there's a major thing that I want to talk to you about. So high blood pressure, right? So you could just say, well, the blood pressure is high, we need to take the pressure down. But we're not addressing some other secondary reasons why the blood pressure is high. And if we don't address these, then the person cannot get true relief. And then all you have them is permanent blood thinners or something to reduce the pressure. Diabetes. So diabetes could be one of the things. A person have diabetes, they're having problems again with circulation. Well, why are they having problems with circulation? Why are they having problems with diabetes? You still could give them some medication, which nothing wrong to try to address it, but you have to address the bigger factors with diet and lifestyle and other things we're going to talk about. Obesity. So most actually the person has too much volume and the heart now has to do all that extra work. So that creates heart disease because it put pressure on the heart. But there's more going on there. Smoking, which is obviously you're putting a lot of smoke in your body. But now in more modern times, we look at smoking in a different way than we used to look at smoking. So keep that in mind. So additional factors now. So this is where we are for the rest of the time. The additional factors. So if you have a heart problem, you're not going to ignore some of the the endpoints, the core, the easily seen things that come. Somebody could say the person have a heart problem, but you have to go to the deeper things that are going in the body that's causing this end. So if you have a high blood pressure, you can't just say, well, I have a high blood pressure. You have to go deeper and say, well, you have a high blood pressure. Now, what modern we're looking at is that there's other problems going on inside the body that's caused the body to swell up, which we will call inflammation, which is the first thing on my board here. And as the body swell up, it creates the swelling or the inflammation creates pressure on the veins and the heart, on the arteries. And that now becomes part of the problem. You have a high blood pressure. If you don't take down the swelling or the rheumatism or the whatever ism you're dealing with, you're not going to be able to get rid of the high blood pressure or the heart problem. You got to get to the root of the problem. And often when we deal with diseases, we don't talk about the root cause. We talk about treating the symptoms, which I'm not saying here that you don't deal with the symptoms and do what you can there. But ultimately, you're here this evening because you want to know what to do with the root cause of the problem. So notice here, oxidative stress from free radical damage. So this is why smoking would be a problem. But smoking is not the only way you can take on toxins and other things that cause free radical damage. And that damage is going to cause inflammation in your system. If the system is inflamed and swollen up, then the system is going to create pressure on the whole body. And then you're going to be in trouble. Also, notice there, autoimmune damage. So when the immune system is attacking you and attacking per se self, then that creates swelling again and inflammation. And that's going to cause coronary artery problem because it's going to overwork the system. These and other factors we will address that has to do with the problem of coronary artery problem. Now, one of the things here I want to say here is, and you've heard about this a lot when we talk about like coronavirus and other type of pneumonia infections. And it's this thing here, a side note here that is important for you to keep in mind, called cytokines. Cytokines is something that comes from our immune response. Cytokines are a broad and loose category of small protein important to cell signaling. So this is a type of protein that the body uses to signal to tell something is happening inside your body that's wrong and we need to protect the body. So this can be easily explained, but I keep reading from my board here. They act through cell surface receptors and are especially important in the immune system. Cytokines modulate the balance between hormone and cell-based immune response, and they regulate maturation, growth, and responsiveness of particular cell population. Some cytokines enhance and inhibit action of other cytokines in a complex way. Cytokines are important in health and disease, specifically host immune response in infection, inflammation, trauma, sepsis, cancer, and reproduction. So I'll give you an explanation there, and then we'll have a little bit more to read. So if you get a cut, right, as you get a cut, what it is, the body now, the bacteria is going to flood into the cut. You have a site of hurt or injury. And the body now, the white blood cell will signal to the rest of the body that something is wrong. So something is wrong and there's a damage. So the cytokine is the signal that works on the surface to tell more either cytokines or more other immune T killer cells and various different cells to come to that area and to start fight. But part of the cytokine response, it will cause inflammation. But the fight is supposed to happen in the inflamed area because other things are coming to the area to fight. And it's signaling and calling for more backup. As this backup happens, more inflammation happens because it's a place of war going on. The problem with the signaling process, as we're going to read in a second, is that if it keeps happening and the swelling keep happening, then you have basically a swelling that is gotten out of control because what we call is a cytokine storm. So the cytokine is signaling more troops to come and fight, but then you have an overwhelm of the system. And then instead of the cytokine shut down and just clear the thing up or the infection up, the infection is not getting cleared, and so the war continues and the swelling continues. The swelling is bad in an infection. And this can be bad when it comes on something like a coronavirus, but it can be bad also when it comes onto your heart because it could shut things down. Or overreaction could cause even things like stroke and heart attack. So notice here, cytokines are crucial for fighting off infections and other immune response. However, they can become regulated and they can become dysregulated, so out of control. There's no proper control of their response. And pathological in inflammation, trauma, sepsis, and hemorrhagic stroke. So the person having a response, and the response just keep coming. And because of that over response, it creates too much inflammation. So if you get like a wasp bite or a sting, you get a mosquito sting bite, whatever you call it, and you see that swelling, that's the cytokines calling. They're coming in and they cause an inflammation, and they're going to create a war, they're going to blockade stuff, and then all that activity of the blood sending all that troops in creates inflammation, creates swelling, it's fighting. But if you never stop, then that could be out of control and it could cause you to have adverse effect. So adverse effect of cytokines have been linked to many disease states and condition ranging from schizophrenia. So I'm sure you probably have never heard that person, they were looking at a person could be having an overreaction of the immune system, and the person's literally brain started to go out of control. Major depression, Alzheimer's disease, to cancer. So they can range in a lot of it. So everything we're talking about here, as I say, we're talking about the coronary heart disease. But it's important to note that this is a broad-based presentation and other things, because all these results in our body has to be able to be under control. Over secretion of cytokines can trigger a dangerous cytokine storm syndrome. So you've heard about this. In 1918, they believe that many of the young men who died from the flu pandemic or the swine flu, they died because they died of cytokine storm. The body sends so much cytokine to whichever part of the body that was being infected that it overreacted because it became dysregulated. So in other words, the cytokines are signaling, hey, there's a war going on, there's an infection, fight. But now they're supposed to say, okay, we have enough troops, shut it down, don't send no more T killer cells, don't send no more of these various different entities to come in and fight. Instead of doing that, he said, send more. The more he sends, the more inflammation, there's a more massive war zone take place. And what happened now, it kills the person. Very important. So over-secretion can trigger dangerous cytokine storm. Cytokines are integral and implicated in all angles of cascade, resulting in the systemic inflammatory response syndrome and multiple organ failure associated with intra-abdominal catastrophe. So you could have a multi-organ failure. I'm sure you've heard that while you're watching the stuff to do with coronavirus, that people having a cytokine storm, you have an overreaction, they become dysregulated. That means the troops are not regulated and they just start firing indiscriminately, and they end up taking out the person they're supposed to protect. And you heard a lot with people that have COVID-19, that they're dying from multiple organ failure, but the organs all have ACE2 receptors, and the organ, liver, your kidney, your liver, your heart. And yet, you look at the list I showed you earlier, the people are not dying high rates of lung failure, but the lung is what they're trying to focus on. So notice all the effort is being put on getting the person oxygen, because the person literally is having a symptom, and the symptom is they can't breathe. So you have to address that, but there's something else that we have to address. This is why you're here this evening with me. So in 2019 to 2020 coronavirus pandemic, some deaths from COVID-19 have been attributed to cytokine release storm. So there's people literally dying from this, and the solution for it is there. So some of the damages that we can experience when it comes on to stress on the system. So remember, any type of stress on the system is going to put stress not just on your brain, but it's going to put stress on your heart. It's going to put stress on the arteries. It's going to put stress on the whole vascular system. So these stresses can come from inflammation, but this inflammation could caused by infection. It could come from oxidative stress, as we said earlier. vascular autoimmune. So the immune system is attacking the vascular system or whatever is going on in the vascular system. Because remember, all these, what you call is these T killer cells and all these different cytokine flows in the blood. And now you could have the attacking something in the blood. Imagine now you have your arteries or your vein, wherever, and you're getting an attack within inside of them. This could cause blockages. This blockages now could mean that you could die of a stroke or something. But it's not what we classically would think. Normally in the past they would say this is caused because you have a buildup of plaque. But other things could be going on, which is why we're here. So vascular autoimmune, this dyslipidemia, blood pressure, blood sugar, obesity, and increased body fat, right? So obesity and increased body fat. These are all stressors. Too much sugar in the blood, we'll explain in a second. And we did the diabetes thing, so I think you should know what that's all about. The central part of the artery, so this is the arterial wall. So the central part of the artery, the open area throughout which the blood flow is called the lumen. This is the corridor through which the blood travels with red blood cell, white blood cell, platelets, protein, nutrients, oxygen, and numerous other substance goes through the blood. The endothelial, which is the thin lining, which is about 1 cell thick when it's healthy. The endothelial, which is the center part of our arteries, of the center part of the tube. This is a point of contact with the blood. So this thing is supposed to be 1 cell thick, right? It's a very thin membrane that is where the blood actually flows and touches. When this become inflamed because of any inflammatory response and toxins or whatever is responding in the blood, as I always jokingly say, if you have too much Twinkies in your blood, this thing could become multiple layers thick, multiple cells thick, and swell up. That swelling, because it's being irritated, creates what we normally will call, blood pressure or various different type of disease. In the past, they just think plaque buildup, but they realize it could swell up. So normally you think about yourself, if you have some bad food or you didn't get a lot of sleep, you could wake up in the morning and the inflammatory process working and healing you through the night. You feel puffy. But normally you feel puffy like that. You feel puffy in your face, your hands feel puffy, and you feel like you have a little bit of inflammatory process going on. You feel a little bit swelling. But normally you don't think to yourself and say, I feel swelling inside, or I might be swelling inside. What I'm telling to you here for the rest of the time is that you're actually swelling inside also. That inflammatory process is going wrong. And also, if you probably check your pulse, your blood pressure, you'd find that they're probably up normally. So acting as a barrier, this is the endothelium, barrier allowing specific substance to pass from the blood into the artery. Fighting off disease and regulating the way the immune system behave in the artery. So they're very important as receptors that fight disease also. They're part of our health. They say that if you take the endothelium and you level it out, it will cover, I think, a few tennis courts, something like that. That's how much of it is in our body. It regulates blood pressure. So it's regulating blood pressure. Control inflammation and oxidative stress. Maintain homeostasis, so keeping our body regular. Fine-tuning the blood and controlling blood clotting. So controlling blood clotting. So when you look at this, the endothelium is very important. It's actually literally alive. It's a whole world going on inside of us. It's fascinating to see this type of stuff. And I say this because if you think about this, what it is that as the blood is flowing through the body, right? As it's flowing through the body, the heart is pumping, right? And probably I'll cover this later on again, but I'll say this to you now because it's important to know. So imagine your heart is beating at how many beats per minute. As it's beating and it's sending out the blood, depending on what's happening to you, like in a situation of a fight or flight, or you're calm, what really the blood pressure is the amount of pump the heart have, the amount of force the heart has, and also the amount of resistance it met or it's dealing with whether it be the size of your body, the weight of you, all that, but also depending on how the blood vessel contracts or expand. And this is an active mechanism that goes on in the body. So how this active mechanism work is that, say for instance, you're about to see a car and the car is about to run you over, and you have a flight thought, and your brain say, man, feet, run, right? What happened is that the whole system now, it gets a message and it opens up the blood vein, the blood vessels, the arteries, everything, and to allow flow of blood so you can execute that thought. So you just start running, but the blood start pumping immediately. If that system doesn't work, and say because you're clogged up somewhere, you're inflamed, when the brain says open up, the thing goes, you can't open up. But your heart start pumping, because remember, the heart and brain is very powerfully connected. So your heart say pump, and instead of the thing goes like this and open up the blood vessels like this, it opens up like that. It just opens up slightly. You could have a heart attack. You could have a stroke, because what it is that you can't get enough blood. And so your brain needs to start process real fast. It opens up, and it also says shoot blood up to your brain. All right? And the thing that instead of going like this and open up wide, this is an over exaggeration just for effect purposes, so you can get an idea. It just open, instead of like this, it just open like that. So the heart is sending, but now you build up a pressure because you can't get a release. So that's where that pressure, and simplest way, I guess, to explain how that pressure is built up, because the whole system is controlled by the brain and is active. But also, if you relax, you would expect the blood pressure, the veins to come down, and to go into that state, because you don't need out of flow. The flow needs to be less, but the blood pressure needs to be constant. So in order to maintain that consistency, the veins need to either lock down or open up. So they have to be flexible. Now imagine, because of whatever is going on, because of inflammation, because you're having allergic reaction to some food, you're having too much toxin, heavy metal. We're going to go through all that in a few minutes here. That freedom of movement is not there anymore, because the whole system is inflamed. So what happened now? That putting pressure back on the heart, because the heart is pumping, but the heart is meeting resistance. And that resistance we'll talk a little bit more about. So we're going to talk about how now to start to fix that problem in the body. Also, it control clotting and all that. Some more, we'll come back to some more of that. So endothelial dysfunction also. What happens when there's a dysfunction? Thickening of the endothelium and the artery wall. So something is happening that's swelling up the wall and causing the inflammation. So somebody said, well, so if my walls are swelling now, so say this is the whole thing, but all the way down here is swelling, and this is a thick, round artery, and the wall now, if it's endothelium, is now not 1 cell thick, but say it's like 8 cells thick. That's going to block off the flow of blood, but also going to block off the ability for the thicker part of the endothelium, the whole artery, to allow the blood to flow. And this is where now I should have put into my slide that picture I started with at the beginning. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to come back to this picture and show you, and hopefully I can find my place here. So this is now, I think one more. This is why you keep the pictures multiple times. So this picture, I think, gives you a good example. Notice here, this picture is describing a blood clot. And hopefully, a blood clot. So hopefully, it's clear enough to you there. You probably can't see it clear enough, but this is the old artery system with multiple layers, and in the middle, he has the lumen, and in the middle, and the thin layer is the endothelium. That endothelium could get so clogged up with various different cytokines, various different other things could be in it and infecting it and getting into the scratches and swelling it up. So as it swells up, because the old thing used to be that you build a plaque, but now they say mainly what's going on with people is that it swells up and it has a narrow passage for the blood to flow through. So as the blood cannot flow through, if you have an emergency that you need to address, like walking up a stairs or shoving snow, which is not supposed to be an emergency, but could be an emergency, Or you have another emergency where you have an infection and now you have more inflammation. That's when you have the problem, because the whole system is swollen and now the blood can't flow through because it has nowhere to flow through because the whole system was already swollen, and then now another infection on top of that just closed the whole system, and dies from a coronary artery problem, or um, they die from endothelium dysfunction. They die from failure of the kidney, failure of the heart, failure of the lung, the liver. But the problem is right here in that inflammation response and the inflammatory process. So notice here, thinking of the endothelium and the arterial wall, increase arterial inflammation. So this is where now things start to go wrong. Increase oxidative stress. So there's something that's causing the oxidative stress on you, and your body cannot react to it because you're already living under stress. Your system is already inflamed before there was an infection. Autoimmune dysfunction, so the immune system attack the arteries because there's something in the arteries that need to be attacked, and the immune system start thinking it's the arteries the problem, and then kill the person. Increase deposit of protein, fats, and inflammatory cell. So you can have within the endothelium, as I showed in that picture there, you have an increase of all these things that are not supposed to be there, deposited and created more inflammation. Because there's a fight going on, because the system needs a cleansing, it needs a detox. It needs to clean out all of that. So cause of endothelium dysfunction, right? Cause of endothelium dysfunction is cigarette smoke is one of them. So cigarette smoke will add on any type of smoke, anything you're burning. You could be walking and there's a protest and they're burning some tires and you're inhaling all that black soot or that black smoke. That's going to bring in oxidants in your body. That's going to start damage cell. As that cell damage and you have all this damage going on inside of you, the body has to clear it. So the cytokine is going to send in and say, oh yeah, there's damage. Come on, friends, come attack. And it starts an attack. And then you can't clear the system and the attack is non-stop. And then now the person die and they say, why did they die from? A heart failure or something. But it's not necessarily a heart failure. Die from an overreaction of the cytokines because the body can't clear it. So we're going to talk to you in a few minutes here how to fix this problem. So elevated blood glucose. So when there's too much glucose flowing in your blood, as we cover with the diabetes presentation, when there's too much blood flowing in your veins, it damages the coronary artery and it could give you a heart problem. So you could end up in the hospital with a heart problem, but the heart problem is a symptom of a deeper problem. The problem is that you don't have proper regulation of sugar, or you probably have too much sugars you're eating. Homocysteine in the bloodstream, chronic infection, toxic or heavy metal. So chronic infection, as you know, would be if you have some type of infection that you're not treating and you keep getting sick. A person who are constantly sick throughout the year, if they get a problem like, say, a COVID problem, they now could end up dying. And the death is not per se, it's the COVID-19 that killing them, but it's that chronic sickness that they constantly have that they never overcome. Allergens, so you have allergic reaction constantly that make your body inflamed. Your bowel is inflamed, your stomach is inflamed. Oxidized LDL, so low density cholesterol, so the cholesterol oxidize faster. So you can see this example like when you buy oxidative damages, when you buy like a non-organic avocado and you cut it, the moment the oxygen hit it, it turns brown. It's the same thing. If your body's like that, like an avocado that's not organic, you go brown real quick. So just the oxygen we breathe becomes a problem to us. Elevated blood pressure, stress on the arterial wall, so blood pressure could cause the stress. And then stress in general, just always being stressed out. Notice here, some of the things you can do that you cannot do it right now, because right now we're under lockdown, but in the future you can go back to this presentation and look up this, and you'll find that these are some of the things you can do to check to see if your arteries are swollen up. All right, there's tests you can do to see this. So this is a list of the tests you can do. Computerized artery pulse waveform analysis, endopath, digital thermal monitoring, and the rest of them. You can check out and go to your doctor when you have time. When all this is passed, you can, if you feel comfortable, going to your doctor and get a scan, right? Or something, and just to see, so they wait for them to digitally map and to see if you're swollen up. Now, why would you do this? You do this because you probably suspect that you're swollen. And you're going to do this because some of the things I'm going to cover in the next few minutes that will give you an idea that you're probably swollen up. And you should address this. And the reason you address this, because if you already have a continuous swelling or inflammation, wherever you want to call it, in your system, when you get something like a COVID-19, it's going to give you a harder time. And some of what I'm going to say next is going to explain why. So what if you don't, some of the things to do first, some of the things to do to deal with this thing. So you do regular workup with your doctor. So sometimes you just have to go to your doctor and say, doctor, especially as you get older, when you start getting above 35, I think, especially if you have a certain lifestyle, you need to start thinking, one of the things I need to do, I need to know if my arteries, not so much my veins, even though you could have, obviously if you start having varicose veins and stuff like that, you're in trouble. But the arteries, what is taking the blood and sending to the rest of the body. You need to know, I said, look, doctor, I need some of what I just said, some of those scans to check up to see. Reduce inflammation. So inflammation is described as swelling, redness, warmth, and pain. Now, if you have an artery problem, you might not be able to see that, right? You might not fully be able to feel if you're having that. You could, but most of the time you can. But this is a general idea of what inflammation is. And it's caused by oxidative stress and immune dysfunction. So many things to do to prevent it. Cardiovascular system is to have dietary change, nutritional supplement. We're going to go over all of this in a few minutes. Herbal remedies, weight loss to take down the pressure. Exercise will help you with cardiovascular system in a big way. Address infections, address stress in your life, lifestyle changes like stop smoking and stop drinking, water consumption to keep your body hydrated. Because if you notice, many people dying from coronary artery problem or dying from COVID, they're dying where the platelets are sort of stick together and they become thick and then they can't get the oxygen. So inflammation again is swelling and warmth and pain. Inflammation that is not addressed will slowly destroy the body instead of protect it. So if you have an inflammation, what an inflammation is, as I say, if you hit your hand, you get a cut. What will happen when you hit your hand and get a cut? It starts swelling. In the past, I guess people didn't know what that swelling was for, but the swelling is for is because, as I say, war start. The bacteria got in because there's always bacteria in our arms and our hands and stuff and on our whole body. And the body starts to protect, also the body starts to work to repair. But if that situation gets out of hand, because as you know, if people do any type of surgery and they smoke, it's hard for the body to repair. So the repair is taking long because of the amount of accident that they have and they live within their body. So in order to help the repair, what you have to do is address the not so much the infection only by cleaning it and dress it, but you have to go now and try to reduce the accidents. That's why we talk about stop smoking and stuff like that. Because the swelling is there too long. So the swelling is not the problem. The problem is not trying to help the body fix why the swelling is there in the first place. That makes sense? Just say amen. So inflammation that is not addressed will slowly destroy the body instead of protecting it. Important to note. Root of degenerative disease like arthritis. So when somebody say you have arthritis, it's good to rub some ointment on the arthritis, but it's more important to say why. And I need to address some of the cause of the arthritis. Because if you already have swelling as an arthritis, I'm saying you don't need to go get a scan. If you have arthritis, then I'm going to tell you that it's a high probability that your arteries are blocked up. And you probably already have high blood pressure anyhow. So by dealing with the coronary blockage or the swelling, you're dealing also with the arthritis. A person could have diabetes. If you have diabetes, it's almost guaranteed that you're going to have coronary artery problems. You're going to have heart disease. because the diabetes is all that blood flowing is destroying the circulatory system, because too much free flowing sugars or glucose in your blood inflame the system. And if the system is inflamed, sooner or later it's going to damage your heart. So address that. And so that when now you have a problem, when something comes, you have a pneumonia infection, you have a cold, the cold doesn't create more inflammation and then take you out. Does that make sense? Hope that makes sense. Because that's the point here. Cancer is root cause from that. A person who start cleaning up their diet and get rid of the sodas, the colas, the lunch meat, some of the things we're going to talk about, will also address heart problem and heart disease most naturally. Inflammation present in periodontal disease. So if you have any type of periodontal disease, please address it. Don't just sit there with that disease, because that will affect even your heart. And I'm sure you've heard people say that. And you probably wonder why, because it's almost like you have a nagging pain, or you have a thought in your mind, and you say, man, I forget something. And then later on you find out, I forget something very important. So you address those causes and God will bless you. Oh, thanks for saying amen. Also, H. pylori infection, so you could have some type of stomach ulcer problem. Address it. Sore throat. When you have a sore throat, you know you're going to get to further diseases, because that problem is caused a swelling in your throat. You feel that swelling. Streptococcus infection, pneumonia. So remember, this is all this information I'm sharing is pre-coronavirus. So you already have a pneumonia, it causes inflammation, then it starts to affect your heart. Somebody say it makes no sense. It makes sense if you understand cytokine storm. Also colitis and sinusitis, because if you have a sinusitis problem, how many times if you know people have sinusitis problem, it gone from them coughing and sneezing to where next thing you know they're having a full-blown cold, and it could even lead to a pneumonia or something like that. And somebody says it's impossible, but it does happen. And then next thing you know they're having problem with their liver, their heart, their kidney somewhere. So any infection that you're having, you address the infection, you try to treat the infection, because by treating it, you're actually blessing your heart. I'm going to go further to say you're trying to prevent dementia also, versus a brain disease, because anything that affects the heart affects the brain. Keep that in mind. So if you have sinusitis, it's very good to make sure you're up on your vitamin D and stuff like that, and vitamin C and stuff like that. So one of the things I suggest here to do to deal with inflammation, there's a test you can do to check for C-reactive protein. C-reactive protein is high in the blood when there's high inflammation in your body. So if you don't have the opportunity, probably not the money to do the scans that I suggest, one of the things you can actually go to your doctor and say, look, I want you to do a C-reactive protein. The C-reactive test for C-reactive protein, which is called HSCRP. So they say I need the HSCRP test, and they'll readily give it to you. And if you have high markers, I think anything over 2 per deciliter of the body, or whatever it was, I can't remember, I read. What will happen with you is that you have an inflammation. So either you have an infection going on that is not being cleared, some of the lists we talk here, or you have a coronary artery problem. That's an infection that you're not seeing, but it's there. Then you address it. So important to note. So what if you do have a test? Some of the things you can know that will cause coronary artery problems and increase your rate of inflammation that will end up affecting your heart. High intakes of refined carbohydrate, including sugars and sweets. So if a person eats a lot of cake, you could find that you're in your 20s and you're clogged up, and you're constantly having sinus problems, you're constantly having circulatory problem, you probably start having problem with breathing, sleep apnea, so you probably need a CPAP. If you need a CPAP already, that tell me that what you do, you're probably taking off too much refined carbohydrates, too much sugar, too much sweets. You need to cut back on that, because that's going to cause too much free sugar in your blood vessels, and it's going to swell up your blood vessels so that blood can't flow through. Increased intake of trans fat, acid, and saturated fat. So trans fat is things like hydrogenated oil. So Crisco, is probably the most famous one. Are partially hydrogenated. Normally they have to list it on the products. So if you have baked goods, so somebody could be vegan, eating baked goods that is vegan and stuff like that, but they are partially hydrogenated oils. That's trans fat. These fats, when it goes in the system, it irritates the system. System is not made to process these type of foods. You need to remove them out of your diet to remove those foods. So you could still partake of trans fat by eating partaking of food as partially hydrogenated oil. Smoking is obvious, whether it's just any type of smoking is putting a lot of damage in your system. Remember this thing here, right? If you remember last year's summer, there was these young men, primarily some women, I think, but mostly young men who were dying from lung failure because they were doing vaping and they could never figure out. I don't know if they did ever figure out what was causing them to die vaping, but anything that put a lot of toxins in your system could kill you. Just think about, pardon me, that way, right? Anything that put a lot of toxins in your system could kill you. And what it is that when the system is already inflamed, and then you add probably some ingredient was in that thing, they're done. Or if they had a cold. So it could be just as simple as a cold. And that cold inflamed the system, but the system was already inflamed for all the poisons they were throwing in the lungs, and the lungs collapsed. So the lungs were being collapsed. So this can simply explain. And as I said, the lungs deliver the heart as ACE2 receptors. And that's what this disease coronavirus is binding to. So lack of sleep, chronic lack of sleep, I should have typed there. If you don't get out of sleep, what it is, your whole system is inflamed. Now, isn't this kind of obvious, right? You see a person that doesn't get a lot of sleep and they always have bags underneath their eyes. But now, after this presentation, when you see somebody bags underneath their eyes, you know that they have a high inflammatory process going on. The coronary arteries, for the most part, now the only way to really prove it is for the doctor to do a scan. But for the most part, you can almost probably 80% to 90% be sure that the arteries are clogged up, and give them a few years, they're going to end up with heart problem or blood pressure problem. So keep that in mind. So lack of exercise, so H. pylori. Also H. pylori infection and other chronic infection. So if you have a constant infection, you need to address the infection, because the infection there is causing the immune system to constantly say, fight, fight. And as the immune system releases cytokine say, come on guys, come fight. And there's a constant inflammation. One more inflammation on top of that, and you could have a serious health problem that everybody will be shocked, but it's real. Chronic autoimmune and inflammatory disease, rheumatoid arthritis, COPD, lupus, any type of autoimmune disease. And notice here, this information is important for you to know. Almost everybody you know with the autoimmune disease, a high percent of them, I can't remember, like 80-something% of them, have a problem with dealing with stress. Very stressful, and it's mostly women that has autoimmune disease. So keep that in mind. High stress level, either living in a stressful situation with some guy or don't know how to handle stress. And so it causes the autoimmune response, and the person is always swollen and always looks sick, always near death. Alcohol intake is another important factor. When you partake of the alcohol, you know, most people take alcohol, they look burnt up anyhow. And they just look beaten. Meat consumption, especially processed meat and deli meat, will cause inflammation, especially in your bowels and other parts of your body. You're putting in basically a lot of modern marvel junk in your system, and it will lead to a lot of inflammation. So so that's what it is. Now, inflammation solution. So here's some quick solution that I partake of myself, some of them, not all of them, but most of them, that is important. One of the things that has been shown to do well for inflammation is, I don't know if you call it a herb, but it's a fragrant herb, and I think it's called boswellia. It's also frankincense, and it is frankincense, and it's black pro-inflammatory enzyme called 5-LOX that strongly promote arteriosclerosis, so the swelling of the arteries. So boswellia is something I take regular enough. Like I was taking it this week multiple times in high dosage. This would try to take down inflammation, because let's say you can see inflammation on a person. Come on now, you know a person who like have high allergies. Sometimes they look puffy and swollen. I'm a person who suffer with allergies, so I know what I'm talking about. So I find when I take certain things, what it is, it takes on my swelling internally, like in my sinuses and stuff, but also it can be shown on my face. But when I'm having swelling, you can see it on my face also. Those of you who worship with me know what I'm talking about. So coenzyme Q10, I kind of spelled it wrong there, but coenzyme Q10, right? is a famous supplement that I'm sure you've heard about over the years. So what does coenzyme Q10 is actually a substance that our body naturally produces. But as we get older, coenzyme Q10 becomes produced, is less produced in our bodies. And so the body does not have this, and this is a powerful, one of the more powerful anti-inflammatory substance, and it's actually more powerful than many anti-inflammatory substances that you can even take. But the body produces the decreased amount of coenzyme Q10. So naturally produced by the body has anti-inflammatory properties. So one of the things you can do, and then again, everything I say here is you always have to check with your healthcare provider. I'm just here giving general information, which I have to cover myself in this type of thing. But understand, I'm just sharing this into you, but this thing is well researched. So coenzyme Q10 now is a natural antioxidant we produce less of as we get older. So you can understand why now somebody 65 and older would have more heart problem, coronary artery problem, would have harder time with pneumonia type disease, because the inflammation starts and they have no powerful anti-inflammatory substance to take the inflammation down. So here's where, if you know you're a person that swells up real easily, have all kind of these problems, that's where it becomes sensible to do it. But remember, anything I say here, I'm not diagnosing diseases. You have to make up your own mind and talk to your own healthcare provider. I'm giving you general information for you to probably go down that rat hole, so to speak, and go investigate to see if probably this is what you need. And if you try it and it doesn't work for you, then you go back and you figure out something. But this is giving you a general idea that you need to start thinking about taking things to take down inflammation, and you start seeing diseases. As I say, almost all diseases are classified as constipation. And you need to figure out how to unblock the constipation and make it flow. While here, we're not talking about the arteries don't have flow because there's something blocking it. We're talking about the arteries themselves are swollen. So what you have to do is try to take down the swelling so it can flow again. But somebody say, oh no, you just need to thin the blood. You probably need to do that too. One of the things I'm going to suggest here will help thin the blood, but it also will help take down the swelling. Notice here, curcumin or turmeric is have anti-inflammatory properties. So this is one of the herbs I take on a daily basis. I just don't eat it in the food. I take it as a supplement. Flavonoids has anti-inflammatory properties that reduce artery scratches and strengthen blood vessels. So just like with your skin and stuff like that, whatever is in the blood could damage the endothelium and cause cuts and scratch the endothelium that swell up. And as they swell and as they get cut or damaged, the cytokines sort of go to repair. But if things are not getting fixed because there's no anti-inflammatory antioxidants in our blood, and you can't fix it because you have low vitamin C, low coenzyme Q10, you're not fixing it, it's just swelling and it's swelling and it's swelling. Next thing you know, you start having blockages. So what it is, one of the things that will help this is curcumin or turmeric, the yellow pigment in turmeric. Flavonoids will help this. Where are you going to get your flavonoids from? You can get supplementation for flavonoids, but you get it from your blueberries and your raspberries, your strawberries, so forth. So you partake of this on a regular basis. This is going to help take down your inflammation. Gamma linolenic acid, GLA, an omega-6 fatty acid that is found in blackcurrant seed oil, borage oil, even primrose oil. It boosts prostaglandin E, which suppress inflammation. So you want to be able to start supplementing that. Ginseng and the ginsenoside are biological active compounds that have anti-inflammatory effect. Ginseng, I take about 5 different ginseng every single day, or 6 different ginseng. I take the American ginseng, the Korean ginseng, the Chinese ginseng, the Russian ginseng, the Indian ginseng on a daily basis, because what you find is that ginseng helps your body deal with stress. It's an adaptogen. It's one of the most powerful adaptogens. It helps your body deal with stress. It gives you more strength and stamina. So this is why you take ginseng, and it helps take down inflammation. So you take this type of stuff on a regular basis. At least I'm telling you, I take it on a regular basis. That's part of what it is, to take the inflammation down. If you look at somebody even with the aging process, a lot of what we call aging, you can say it is constipation, is inflammation. You take it down. Also, lutein, which is found in spinach and dark leafy green vegetables, associated with lower levels of important inflammatory marker, C-reactive protein. So the more partaking of green leafy vegetables, the more partaking of things like spinach, it pulls down inflammation. And then the C-reactive marker that you can go to the doctor and get a test for will tell you that you have low amount of that. That tells you have low amount of inflammation. So before you couldn't see what's going on in the body. Now with these tests, you can actually get a very clear picture of what's happening in the body. And with the foods you can partake, if you can take it down. So you partake of these green leafy vegetables. So imagine now somebody who have a heart problem and they don't eat greens, neither cooked nor raw. They're not getting any high amount of lutein, so their inflammation is out of control. So any other problem they have, like a stressor in their life, they could, oh, my heart, because what happens is not so much per se the heart, is that the blood can't flow because they're swollen and the blood can't get around. Or there's so much clotting going on that the liver is getting whipped by the blood. Lycopene, very important. The pigment in tomato is something that the body needs to take down inflammation. Is very good. Notice here, vitamin C, vitamin E, and selenium reduce free radical damage that contributes to inflammation. So notice, in most of these diseases, you need high blood serum of vitamin C. You need vitamin E, selenium. Well, it's the same thing when we come on to fighting infectious diseases. It's the cytokines goes as messengers and they say we have a problem. Come on, folks, come fight. As they say, come on, folks, come fight. They need to have something to fight with. The immune system needs to be fed. And what it needs to be fed is these things I'm telling you about, because they need to do war. And in order for you to do war, if these are not here, then we have is a dysregulation of the cytokine. They get out of control and they're looking for substance and they can't find substance because all they're finding is Twinkies and Fruit Loops and fruit roll-up and beef jerky, and they're not finding real food. So what it is, the system goes out of control, can't find any substance, and the person died from a cytokine storm. But it's not the cytokine is doing its work, and it keeps saying, fight more, and it can't get anything to fight. We feed the body vitamin C, we feed the body selenium. Vitamin D again. Vitamin D, which is a sunshine vitamin, it's an anti-inflammatory property. It lower blood C-reactive protein and IL-6. And so you need vitamin D in your system again because the vitamin D takes down the swelling. Now somebody could say, but can you go in the sun, get too much sun exposure and get damage to your skin and then you have an inflammation in your skin? Sure. If you ever had sunburn, you can do that. But one of the things I tell you to do, and you don't go test it big time, but I just think normally if you're going to know you're going to get a big sun exposure, you still do you always do your barrier and isolation and quarantine. You still do your sunblock and all that stuff. Get some zinc on yourself. But one of the things I've found that has helped is that I do some juicing of carrots and stuff like that and get that pigment in my skin. And what you find is that the skin does better in the sunlight because you literally have the antioxidants in your skin. I just say that's what I've done. So you could try that, but you don't have to. Zinc, another important thing to fight any inflammation and also to even help fix the system from being overcome by any virus, is an anti-inflammatory mineral. Is believed to work by decreasing inflammation producing compounds called cytokines. So it don't make the cytokine get out of control. So imagine, I say, the person already have, as I said, beef jerky in their bloodstream, or some type of heavy metal toxicity because they eat a lot of fish. So they have mercury, they have all kind of stuff. And the whole system is getting inflamed and the endothelium is just swelling up and it's stopping the flow of blood. Now, what it is that the person still needs to change their diet and drink some water and get some garlic and stuff. But what the person needs to do is get some zinc in there to take down some of those inflammation. Get some D, some C, some coenzyme Q10, get some green juice. And so what we have noticed that the people who get like a COVID-19, even if they have some pre-existing condition, they fare better if you can get some of these antioxidants in their system, because what it will do is help deal with the problem that is happening there. blood pressure, increase heart pumping or arterial resistance. Remember, we talk about that. So what can cause that? Because remember, I tell you, the heart pumps, and then the veins have to, and the arteries have to open or close, depending on what is going on in your body. So as this is happening, if the venous or circulatory system is not responding properly, then you have pressure buildup, right? So, but there's certain things that can help or can exacerbate it. As I said before, like a pneumonia infection, simple infection, a tooth problem. You have some teeth that need to be pulled out and something to fix. If that's not fixed, it could create more pressure because now the cytokines is sending war and it's not the fight with. So anyhow, caffeine is a big problem. So I noticed you can have a person who have too much blood, too much sugar in the diet, and then they drink a lot of caffeine. And here's what happened: 60% of the population has a genetic abnormality that slows the metabolism of caffeine in the liver, leading to an increased risk of elevated blood pressure. So you see what's going on there. So remember what I look at as the liver, right? Is that the liver is, to me, a chemical producing and chemical processing plant. So you send on this chemical called caffeine, and most people genetically can't even manage it. Caffeine is similar to milk or milk protein. They can't process it. So what it is, it swells up, it clogs up the system, swell up the liver, and create now a blood flow problem. So now you have a pressure, because the pressure now is caused from the back up. So the heart is doing its thing. But now all this junk and Twinkie in the system, all this, Big Mac and all this type of stuff is basically sending out so much toxin in the system that the system shut down. But most people will say, oh no, it's just the fat. It's not just the fat, and I'm not focused on the fat. I think next month I'm going to do one of the evening presentation on weight loss. But what happening here is that the system is under pressure. So this is why most people can't deal with caffeine. You know, there's most people who drink caffeine and look swollen and they look beaten, they look dried up. They just look like the caffeine is giving them a whipping. But so they say it gives them energy. Yeah, but it's not worth it. The trade-off is not worth it. Notice low blood level of vitamin C, D, and E. So a person could have not enough antioxidant in their system, like vitamin D, vitamin C, vitamin E, and it creates blood pressure. And people have attested that this might not be your solution, but many people have coronary artery problem or heart disease. They find that when they increase their antioxidant, the pressure drops. So that is evidence enough to tell you, from what I've understand from different people, that the evidence could drop simply because you put antioxidant. You take the swelling down. Now, it doesn't mean that you don't change the lifestyle things that you need to change. It just means that big part of the problem is low amount of antioxidant. Elevated iron, so too much iron is in the blood. Low blood level of magnesium. Magnesium is what you relax. So you take calcium, and calcium contract the muscle, and then magnesium relax the muscle. So the body doesn't have enough magnesium, the muscles start to get tense and can't relax. And so that could be a simple problem. As I say, you have to know yourself. Everybody have different issues that they're dealing with. But if you're a person dealing with magnesium, you could simply take magnesium, and all of a sudden your problem goes away probably by 50% or so. Just that one thing, magnesium. Low blood level of coenzyme Q10. So this could be a simple solution for somebody. Now, everything I say here, how I look at it, because most people are looking for a magic bullet. How I look at health, I look at it differently from what most people look at it. What I look at it as is like this. If the study shows that people who take coenzyme Q10 will get 20% improvement on, say, their blood pressure, or some of the marker that tell you that there's something wrong with your venous system, your artery system. I look at it, if you get 20%, what if you do 5 or 6 or 7 things that have been proven to give you a 5% help, a 10% help, a 30% help? What you could do, you could fix your problem, but most people want one thing. They say, Lord, just tell me what to do. Do I need to do yoga and meditation? Do I need to drink more water? And I'm saying, don't throw away the yoga and meditation, but start to meditate. Get some magnesium, try stuff and see what combination work for you. But people want one thing. Go ride a bicycle, go for a jog, go for a walk. Do a few of these things that I'm covering here, and what you'll find is you get good results because what you're doing a few things to take away the inflammation. And also what you're going to do, you're going to correct some other problems. Notice here, low level of lycopene. You've seen people, they'll drink every day some tomato juice. You say, why are they drinking that? Because the lycopene is giving them antioxidant. No, it's not. I don't like the taste of it myself. But if you took that and every day you drink a cup of that, or I don't know, a V8 is the number one company I think make that stuff, and you feel better, it's the antioxidant in it that it takes your inflammation down. And if you drink it, you feel bad, you throw that out, you go find something else. And you find what combination work for you. Most naturally, if you smoke, this will increase your blood pressure. If you have high level stress, this will increase your blood pressure. So I know somebody, right, this lady that I was dealing with a few years back for health, and she had high blood pressure. She went to a retreat and she came back and her blood pressure was not fixed. She said nothing worked. She said other people got results, I got no results. So after dealing with her a while, I realized herbs was not going to fix her. It would help, and it would probably keep it where it don't get out of control and the cytokines would not kill her. But what I realized is that this person was such a high stress that the blood pressure was not coming because she lacked a vegan diet. This person was a vegan. This person kept the Sabbath. This person, did other things. But this person, I didn't know at first, I found out very high stress. This person loved conspiracy theories. And this person was stressed out. This one of the people believe that the government is after them and all that type of craziness. So that led to a constant level of stress. And so for that person, some of these other things just probably helped keep her alive, but it wasn't going to fix the problem, right? But for her, she had to learn to reduce stress and leave the conspiracy theory alone. Unless she did that, she was not going to get no results. So that's why I say for you, your results might come from a different source, a different way. So for me, it's important to not think just stress, because stress might not be your problem. Probably your problem is you need to just drop 20 pounds. As the next month, we're going to talk about some powerful ways to lose weight. Increase in heart size. This is very crazy, right? Because there's people increasing the heart size not because of just stress. You could take steroids and it blow up your heart. Human growth hormone make your heart get larger, and then you die from a heart failure. But the heart failure is just simply because of the chemicals you're taking. It raises the size of the heart. The arteries is becoming too hard. They're too swollen and they become stiff. They're inelastic and they're narrow. So now you have blood pressure increase. So the aim there, so say in the past, the doctor would say the only thing you need to do is get a blood thinner to make the blood flow more. I'm never going to say don't do that, because you have to do what you can to stay alive. The aim of all of this is, we're talking about life, right? Christ came and died to save us, but at the end of the day, we follow and we do everything to save a person from dying. So you do whatever you can to save life, but ultimately what I'm saying here, beyond that, you have to start thinking, what do I eat, what do I do to make the blood vessels more fluid and elastic, to make it not be as stiff and hard, to make it not be as narrow, because I want to take the swelling down. You understand the point here? The point here is getting to that point where you understand beyond just the symptom is your pressure is high. But why? Because you're swelling. It's the same thing. If your face starts to look hard and it's not as let's see here, it starts to be hard, stiff, inelastic, and narrow, and you start to look like you have no suppleness to your face, you can just start throwing some vitamin C serum on your face, right? And it's probably some coenzyme Q10, all kind of thing on your face. Or I would say to you, probably need to throw it in your mouth and get it inside, and so it starts to show on the outside. Does that make sense? You can just raise your hand if that makes sense, right? I can't see, but the Lord sees. So get it on the inside, take the swelling down, and then you start seeing it on the outside, and the outside is a representation of how your arteries are doing. Before something go test, put what I'm saying here to a test. You get a COVID-19 and you drop dead because, again, you were already swelling and the thing just finish you off. Elevated level. Remember, coenzyme Q10 is high when you're in your teens and 20s. But as you get older, this anti-inflammatory chemical or substance is not high, it decreases. So this would explain why somebody 80 will never be able to deal with a cytokine storm or with any disease that increase inflammation. But a healthy 20-year-old is not going to be affected by it. An unhealthy 20-year-old going to drop dead just the same way because they already have inflammation because they get up every day eating burgers and taking in all kind of toxic food and living a toxic lifestyle, playing video games all day long. You change that and a 20-year-old would just go through it and move on. You see, the disease is very rational. But remember, we're talking about coronary artery disease. I don't want to be fanatical here, but I'm telling you, the disease is very straightforward. You take the inflammation down. Elevated levels of uric acid. So if you have too much uric acid, I tell you, probably your kidney is not flowing. You're not dumping all the amount you're partaking of too much protein. So you kill the protein. Cut it. Consume excessive trans fat. We covered that. Obesity. We get in there. So blood pressure solution. Garlic. So 3 quick solution here for blood pressure. Garlic lowers blood pressure, lowers inflammation, and oxidation. So garlic is important as to thin the blood. It's going to lower the blood pressure. So many people say it will thin the blood, but also I believe because it's an antioxidant, it's taking down the pressure, the inflammation. So the blood can flow more. And and it helps with oxidation. So that when the low density lipoprotein doesn't get damaged by accidents too easily, it protects them. Remember, what is an antioxidant? An antioxidant is a substance that takes the hit and makes the accidents, as I say, release an iron or something, and it does not damage the protein and the fat protein that's floating through your blood and make them become toxic or make them create a cascading effects of toxifying other things within themselves. So this is what you need. Another important thing that is important, and that's something that I take on an often basis, even though I'm not showing any signs of coronary artery problem, but I believe this herb is so good. So I believe in this one. You could try it for yourself. It's called hawthorn berry. It sounds like the hearth, right? And the hawthorn berry herb used traditionally to treat heart and cardiovascular ailment, combat inflammation, oxidation, reduce the risk of coronary heart disease. So this is a herb that has been tested. Now somebody said, Lloyd, man, there's a lot. So you believe this herb is so powerful. Let me explain this to you real quickly as I'm getting closer here. When we're talking about something like this herb and herbs like this has hundreds to thousands of years of use traditionally, right? So when you think about that, hundreds to thousands of years of use traditionally. So somebody come along and say, Lloyd, but medical science with these drugs have about 70 years. It's more potent because we live in a modern time. You cannot in your mind discredit thousands of people over generations of the generation that have used herbs like this and says it's helped with the heart, and people who today, as we're living, have tried it and say, yeah, it does help. I say just dismiss it because there's no double-blind, placebo, cross-randomized trial. Because they are doing these trials and they've shown that these herbs have been clinically proven in modern times also to help people improve. Now, the difference is you might take it and you get a 25% improvement. And I say to people, 25% improvement, no side effects, thousands of years being used by traditional people all over the world, and they've gotten results. You should consider it. Now, it's your choice. You have to still go to your doctor and say, doctor, I'm going to take this herb. My doctor said, no, I have some drugs for you. You have to do that by yourself. I'm going to do it myself. But I'm just telling you, it's sad that you have to make so much caveat. And I know you have people who are, they say you have to present these things for dummies because people just throw their medication and jump on something like this and then drop dead and they blame me. So I'm telling you, don't do that. You got to test these things and see if they work. You still have to still deal with your doctor because he has powerful drugs that you just can't come off cold turkey. You could have some terribly adverse reaction. I don't know how much to cover myself, but listen, thousands of years, hundreds of years, proven to help. You consider these things. You know, people poo-poo stuff and say, oh no, we've been doing this drug is killing how many people and have so much side effects, and this drug has been developed for the last 100 years or 50 years. Bro, this thing has been around for thousands of years helping people. This is coming from the Creator God. You should consider these things and don't make people poo-poo something that's been around for thousands of years. No side effects. Melatonin is produced in the brain. It's a hormone produced in the brain that lower blood pressure. Many people, I know people who have problem with sleeping and they're stressed out. they're constipated, literally constipated, stressed out, all that type of stuff, high blood pressure, all that. And they say this is one of the things that's helped them because it helped them to calm down at night and sleep. And the brain produces it naturally, but many people find they have low levels of it. They take it and it help them. I've never taken it and it helped me because I don't have this problem. So some of these things I don't take. When I take it one time, it don't do anything for me because I don't have the problem. But if you have low levels of melatonin, you take it. I always remember this herbalist who was in charge of. He was in charge of cataloging all the herbs and nutrients and food for America. I can't remember his name, but he wrote a book called Green Pharmacy. He says after years of studying about ginseng and all the studies he read about ginseng and what the traditional people tell him about ginseng, he says what it does on paper, never taken it, he said, he didn't use it, didn't have no need for it because he was still young and he still has his strength, right? So what he did, he read about it and he says, just because of what they say about it, he said he's planted a plant in his yard and he's keeping it so as he get older, he could get the use of it. He believed and he was wise. He said, my body's strong now and I don't need a ginseng, but as I get older, I not only want to have it, I want to have it in my yard. I want to have it close by because I want to get the benefits of ginseng. Thousands of years, many people have attested the potency of it. I can attest that that's a powerful herb that takes on information and it's good for all kind of stuff. So people might poo-poo it and say, oh, but there's more powerful stuff here. Yeah, but they have side effects. And as they go on, you have to increase the dosage. These type of stuff, it is powerful. Love this stuff. Anyhow, metabolic syndrome. So May, June, by God's grace, I'll be covering some more of these metabolic syndrome. So I'm not going to leave you in the dark. I already covered insulin resistance. So remember, go back 2 weeks ago and watch that video about diabetes. Very important. They'll add to this presentation. Also, insulin resistance is part of metabolic syndrome. Excessive weight around the midsection. So if you see a person who have excessive weight around the midsection, they are basically high risk of having a coronary artery problem, stroke, stuff like that. So you see some people, they're big, but they're big all over their body. They're like, how you say, they're consistently big. But when a person is pear-shaped, it is almost guaranteed that sooner or later they're going to have a stroke or they have coronary artery disease. So these are a way to quickly see this, right? You can't miss this. Pear-shaped, I've known people pear-shaped, and I know this information, and I said, this person going to have a stroke. And within probably like a year of thinking about that, the person had a stroke. But you can have a person just big, right? Their thighs big, their calf is big, their arms big, and they have a less of a problem. Some of that pear-shaped where all the fat congeal in the midsection right there, and they're thin up top, they're thin up bottom, and there's everything right here. Stroke patient is coming up. Just give it time. So excessive weight around the midsection, sedentary lifestyle. So if you do too much video games, just watch out. So get up and start get going. Increased risk of type 2 diabetes, stroke, and coronary heart disease. Few more points here. Pathways of inflammation, physical inactivity, and lack of exercise. So we need to exercise. Low lean muscle mass and decreased muscle strength in men. Men are more susceptible to these problems. That's why I know this coronavirus, coronary artery problem hits men more because men have so much destructive lifestyle like smoking and drinking. Higher rates of way higher rates of smoking and drinking. They say in China, it was mostly men dying, and men in China smoke anywhere from 48% of men in China to 52%. Women anywhere from 1.9 to about 2 point something percent smoke. Men were dying more in China than women. In Italy, same thing. In America, what happened to men here? Very destructive lifestyle where they come onto food and stuff like that, and they're dying mostly. So important to note. So alcohol consumption is another way that will damage your coronary artery. Chronic lack of sleep, as we had covered before. Sleep apnea. So if you have a sleep apnea problem, it's probably time for you to drop 20 pounds. High levels of stress. So people are stressful lifestyle. Chronic anxiety. So people are always anxious. Chronic depression. Type A personality. Always aggressive. Always like to have a fight, have an argument. There's some people, if it's not a fight, they're not in it. If it's peace and quiet, they can't be quiet. They always have to running them out. People that normally could be slim and have a coronary artery problem. Why? Because the whole system is constantly inflamed, constantly locking up. There's constantly fight or flight. This way you take ginseng. Ginseng is an adaptogen. It'll make you not always want to fight. If you don't want to fight, all the hormone release damage the blood vessel. Have you ever get excited or get angry or get almost have an accident and you start you start sweat, your whole body goes tense, you start to smell a funny smell in your body because all the hormone is released. Imagine some people live like that every day. They will have coronary artery problem. The whole system is swelling, yet their diet might be good. They might be a vegan, they might be plant-based, they might juice, but they're just always angry. Age become a problem. Notice here, you could miss and think I'm talking about the coronavirus, but I'm talking about coronary artery disease. It's a similar problem, and this is why people are dying from liver failure and stuff like that, because the blood is being messed up, the arteries are being messed up, the inflammation is being messed up. Being a male, again, become male as such, what you call it, toxic lifestyle, what they call it, toxic masculinity, it will kill you. You need to be a guy that take care of your body. All right, you know when you've arrived, when you start doing facial and you're a guy. So, osteoporosis at menopause, that tell you that you're gonna have problems. Chronic infection, we talked about that before. A few more points. Well, I'm at my point here. So, hopefully, anything I miss here, because let's say I only have so long that I can talk for, without totally burden you. And so so I summarize here before I read my last text. Inflammation that swells up the system can be dealt with multiple solutions. You deal with it by getting up off the couch, as I say, and start to exercise. You deal with it by start to do church, start to deal with stress, start to learn to follow this morning presentation. Some of this morning presentation goes right in line with this. Inflammation is dealt with by how many antioxidants you have that takes the inflammation down. How many herbs you have that take the inflammation down. You partake. I partake of these things on a daily basis, some days more than others. And I can tell when I'm partaking of it because I can feel the inflammation come down. You can tell without getting those, what you call it, scans, I say. But if you can afford it and you can get those scans, get those scans. If you can get the C-reactive protein test to find out how much C-reactive protein, get it. But if you get it, the test is just telling you that you're stressed out and you have a lot of inflammation. What you're going to have to do is start taking some herbs, start taking some supplement, build back up these powerful chemicals that we have in our body that was naturally put there by God. But as we age and as we abuse our bodies, they reduce. You put them back in your body, put back in the vitamin C. What you're doing is by taking all that inflammation down, you're taking all these supplements, all these herbs, all of these things that you're doing, the lifestyle thing of drinking your water and every now and then do a cleansing, a detox, and to get out all that heavy metal and impurities. What will happen is that if you do get an infection, you have a fighting chance. Because you won't have a cytokine storm, your body won't run into a swelling where your blood now starts to thicken and your blood can't flow, and now you have a blood flow problem, so now you damage your kidney, you damage your liver, you damage your heart. You will help avoid that. So this is when you do it, and you do it now. Because when you get that infection, what's going to happen is that the war is going to start, and your body is going to call for these nutrients, and there's no nutrients there, as we covered last Sabbath. So what you do, you start to put it in, and if you're already sick and you weren't doing these things, now is the time to start to go on the covenantadvent.org, go over to health topics, and then go to coronavirus. And you see at the bottom there, you see this thing called Nature's Penicillin. You go to coronavirus solutions or something like that it's called. And you go to the health topic, and you go there, you go see this thing called Nature's Penicillin. Make that thing, start to drink it if you're already sick. Get some antioxidants in your system. Start taking some of the herbs that will list here, some of the vitamins. All these things will put antioxidants in your system to give your immune system to fight. Remember, the disease is not going to be cleared by these nutrients. The disease being cleared by these nutrients being feeder, a nutrient, a food to your body, so your body has something to pull as almost like ammunition to fight the disease. As the disease is fought, you'll get the blessing and your body can fight. But if you have nothing there, you're going to end up like mainly these men who live on a SAD diet, a standard American diet, and they have no nutrients. So when they have a disease, they can't clear it because the immune system have nothing, and all they have is swelling, and the swelling will lead to the shutting down of the whole system. I read to close because I believe this. I believe that God never intended, and these studies that I do here to me prove, and what my person experiencing and other people, you heard the testimonies this morning, you heard the prayer requests, that there's people getting results from the things that we're presenting here that have been tested positive for coronavirus. They're older and they're getting results because God does not want us to suffer. But because of our rebellion and our crazy diet or modern genetically engineered diet, where we're just eating all kind of modern Franken food, we have no nutrients. We're eating all this conventionally grown food, this genetically engineered food. They're dead. They have no nutrients. They're not putting anything in our bodies. And we're depleted. We're deficient. You put some nutrients back in you, I'm going to tell you, you will do wonderful. And we don't have to have all these dead bodies piling up. Unnecessary. Lord said that, and I believe that without no caveat. I really believe, and I do believe, not just on a philosophical, biblical basis, that if you get off the evolutionary diet, if you get off the caveman diet, and you get onto the biblical diet, give up the caveman diet. We didn't evolve. We don't come from caves. You'll be amazed that when you go into God's diet, you go eat fruits, nuts, seeds, vegetables. You go eat healthy food. You put these antioxidants in your body. You put these anti-inflammatory substances in your body, and you'll be amazed. Now somebody said, well, are you guaranteed that nobody will die? Look, there's some people that they're ready to kick the bucket. And kick right the bucket over. And so, give them for 2 minutes some antioxidant, not going to do anything. But you're here, so you're alive. You can start juicing right now, can't you? So God doesn't want us to suffer. God wants us to be in good health. 3 John chapter 1 verse 2 said, beloved, God loves you. God loves me. I wish above all things. There's a lot of things God could wish for you. A lot of things John could wish for you. But above all things, that thou mayest prosper. God wants you to be prosperous. Amen. And be in health. God wants you to be in health. Even as thy soul prosper. God wants you to prosper. Spiritually, physically, mentally, always. We talk about this morning, how to prosper mentally. In the future, we're going to do a mental health presentation. Some of the herbs and things you need to do to fix your brain. So the food you need, because I'm telling you, think about cytokine storm. There's people who's going mad, crazy. They even sound crazy now I sound now. Because I'm shouting here, I'm developing my own energy here. Sweating. Because their body has no substance, no nutrients. So God don't want you to suffer. God wants you to be in the best mental health. But that's not going to come by you eating Twinkies all day long. Is Twinkies a name brand? I don't even know. But you know what I'm talking about, that food. God don't want you to eat beef jerkies all day long and deli food and the cheap Chinese food and the cheap pizza every day and stuff like all day long. You're not getting any antioxidant. Antioxidants come from things that has leaves and things that are fruits and vegetables and berries. You need to be partaking of those things, some roots, some herbs, some barks, some limbs. That's what you need to partake of from trees. And God will bless you. So God wants you to prosper. So I pray that God may bless you, and I pray that you may be in the best of health. So natural solution for coronary artery problems. Is there any questions as we take some questions? Few questions here as we talk about natural. God wants you to love, right? The heart is love. Hey, think about that, right? Well, Sister Tamara is probably going to shoot me over a question. If anybody have a question here, I'll take it at this point. Think about love, right? What is love? You think about love is really from the heart, right? People say, oh no, it's something else. One thing is the heart. Because when you feel excited or you feel something you love, your heart will start beating more, right? So think about it. If your heart starts beating more, and what's supposed to happen in our class? Now, you with me, you're in class, right? As you get excited, your heart starts beating more. Your arteries are supposed to open up. But imagine if the heart is hard, not elastic, is not fit to the more, and it goes like this and it can't go, it's budging. Are you going to be in love? You're not going to be in love, right? You're not going to be in love. Because what it is, the blood flow not going to happen. So to me, that's why I believe sometimes people when they're old, they can't fall in love anymore because they have coronary artery disease. So what you need to do, and this is a joke, but what you need to do, as someone load up the questions for me, what you need to do is get your arteries flexible. Take down the swelling. As you take down the swelling, when you see something that you love, all of a sudden the heart will start beating more because you know you're having that feeling of love. And then the arches will open up to let the blood flow. And as the blood flow, you'll feel that nice loving feeling that the chemicals being released in your brain, the feel-good chemicals are released and telling you, oh, you're in love. But imagine the heart start pumping because the brain say, oh, I'm in love. And the heart start pumping and it's stuck. It can't open up. So that feel-good chemical is not floating in your body. So you say, I guess I'm not in love.
So the first question we have
Okay, tomorrow I hear your voice.
is coming from Brother Green, and he would like to know,
Brother
would
Green.
you recommend eating raw garlic on a daily basis?
I'm not experimenting with that on a daily basis. I know I've tried in the Nature's Penicillin. Some people have tried. I remember this pastor used to deal with, he would eat it daily, and it worked for him. Some people take cayenne pepper on a daily basis to help them with circulation. There is a garlic that I've never experimented with that is low in scent. So the scent is not as high, and some people find that helps them. So you could take it on a daily basis for what I've heard some people do, but I don't know. I never done that. So I've taken it in capsules dried on a regular basis, but not eating raw garlic on a daily basis. So I don't know. That's a good question, but I can't say. It's hard to tell. It's hard to say something I never experimented with. If somebody else have experimented with, they could probably chime in.
Next question is from Brother Diaz, watching from YouTube, and his question is, are powdered herbs more beneficial when they are boiled? If so, for how long?
A decoction could be boiled for hours, 4, 5, 6. I don't know how many hours. But decoction is normally different from a tea. A tea is something you boil very short and drink it probably within 15 minutes, half an hour. Decoction is normally, the word is normally used to describe something that could buy for hours. It could be there for, 4 hours, probably even more if necessary. Is it better than powdered herb? One thing I've learned is that they've shown that you could blend something, strain it, drink it, and still get similar benefit. You could do it in tincture. It is hard to tell because the bodies have to, when you do a powdered herb, it's called micronized. It is powdered down to a limit that all the cells are broken up. Technically, that's what they taught me. The cells are broken up, and so the body can easily absorb the nutrients. If you cook it, some of the delicate antioxidant could get damaged, but most of the essence in it will be preserved. Many things are not damaged by cooking, but some things like barks and roots and trees, you have to, in order to get the essence out of it and get large, copious amount of it, the only really way to do it is to boil it for hours. And so it depends, I think, on what you're taking. Most of the time when we talk about taking herbs, we're talking about taking herbs that are more leaves. A lot of time when we're talking about certain things like astragalus and stuff like that, you can take the powder, but sometimes if you want high volumes of it, you get a big pot and you boil it for a few hours. And what that will do, it will remove the essence or the healing properties that you need out of it, and so that you can take more volume of it. I think the issue here, for me, probably other herbalists will say something different, but for me, it is more to get high volume than you probably will get if you take in the powder, because as you know, you can only take so much powder. For one, I like herbs. If I'm going to use something that I want to increase the amount, how I do a water, they do a water extract. So even some of the powders are water extract. So basically what they do, they blend it, cook it down, and then strain off the fiber, and then it increase it by 4 to 1, 10 to 1. So instead of you taking a tablespoon then, so if you take a tablespoon of a 4 to 1, you're taking 4 tablespoons. If you're taking a tablespoon of 10 to 1, you're taking 10 tablespoons. So you can get more of the nutrients in. But if you try to take a powder, it'd be very difficult to partake of 10 tablespoons of any herb, much if you need to take 4 or 5 herbs. So what they'll do, they'll take a pot, a big pot, and they'll take a whole bunch of herbs that you'll never be able to powder and take. They boil it for hours, get out all the nutrients they can that is not going to be destroyed by heat. And then now you drink that, because you can drink that more because, again, you're drinking fluid. You just have to urinate a lot and you get more nutrients in. So when what we are talking about there, I personally prefer water extract that is either drank or it's dilute, it's the water is removed, but I don't like extracts themselves. So I would say you want to be able to take, if you want to take a high amount of anything, that decoction method for a few hours, where you boil it and steam out a lot of the water and then get it down to almost like a tonic, will give you more benefit when it comes on to especially barks and limbs and roots, because you're just not going to be able to partake of all that fiber. So it's more to remove the fiber and just get the nutrients. Hopefully I answered the question. If not, give me a follow-up question, because that's important. If you're really sick and you need something potent, but you don't want it like an extract or for it to be too near pharmaceutical, the way to do it is to boil it. And if you deal with fibrous roots, barks, yeah, you're going to have to partake of it by decoction.
The next question is coming from Sister Martha. What herb is good for melatonin?
I can't answer you off my head. Sorry. There's some herbs and food that's good for melatonin. I can see it in my mind, but I don't have that photographic memory, so I do apologize. I can see it. There's a few herbs and foods that are good. Just pull it up on I do apologize. Off my head, I don't have it in my head. Melatonin is something that I tried in the past as a supplement, and it reacted bad with me, so I think my body don't need it. So I just never went into the study of it, but it's something I can tell people that they need to relax and need to calm down. I've known many people who say it helps them powerfully. For me, that was not a problem, so I never memorized it. Something I can tell off my head, that's not one of them. Just check it online, but melatonin is good to get you. People having insomnia, people who having certain other type of cardiovascular problem can be helped with melatonin. Amen. But there's foods you can eat. There's foods that we eat. If you eat a very big plant-based diet, you're getting melatonin naturally, or it stimulates the melatonin production in your brain. Next question, please.
And so far, those are all the questions for the evening.
All right, so I appreciate it. So remember, and before, as Sister Tamara get ready to come out and sing to close and pray to close, that blood pressure is a testimony that something is going wrong. When we take in antioxidant, we're taking some of the herbs, some of the things we do here, we deal with stress. What we're doing, we're taking down the oxidants. We change our diet, lifestyle, and we partake of some things to help us along. We take down the oxidant, we make the blood flow. The example I gave you there, although I gave it to you, I say that sometime in a funny way, but I want you to get a very clear picture of how it works. The heart is pumping and there's resistance. You see that the heart is weak. So if the heart is weak, as I say, you have to go to your healthcare provider. If your heart is weak and that's the problem, then you need to take something like a hawthorn. That's your solution. But that's not everybody's solution. That's just going to be your solution to strengthen the heart. You got to start doing some exercise. You work it out with your healthcare provider or your nutritionist or herbalist. If you have another problem, and your other problem is that you have swelling, well, you have to go explore the antioxidant to take the swelling down. You have to get rid of allergies. You have to get rid of toxins. You do all those things, and you take it down. When you take it down, you can respond properly. And you can respond now. So when you see now like a car coming towards you, you get frightened, your body won't be limp. Because why did the heart going to say pump, and the arch is going to say open up, the blood can rush through. If that doesn't happen, you could end up with a heart attack. So that's what it is. So you got to deal with the underlying cause, whatever your underlying cause, because all our bodies are very complex. I'll give you a broad idea for you to know, to run down and investigate, to talk to your doctor, not just to sit there and say, well, my blood pressure is high. It's high for a reason. Not just say that I'm having always headaches. If you're getting headaches all the time, you're setting up for a stroke. Don't just ignore the headache. Say, why am I having the headache? Remember, pain is a signal that something is wrong in the body. You fix the pain, you're fixing the body. You start to do things that is going to stop bringing oxidants in your body and damage your body. And you start to take things that's going to bring the swelling down. And as you do this, you'll find your skin will tell you that it's going right. Your heart will tell you you're going right. Your veins tell you you're going right. And you will get the benefit. We all want this benefit. So I pray that God may bless you. And I see there, okay, I see you put a list there. So the list is on there. I guess that list is for oxidants or melatonin. So God bless. Sister Tomorrow will come and sing our closing hymn. May God richly bless you as we are now soon to enter into this new untried week. May God bless you. Thanks.
Thank you, Pastor Lloyd. We'll now turn to our closing hymn, which will be hymn number 65. Hymn number 65. God be with you till we meet again. By his counsel's guide uphold you. With his sheep securely fold you. God be with you till we meet again. Till we meet, till we meet at Jesus' feet. Till we meet, God be with you till we meet again. God be with you till we meet again. May his wings protecting hide you. Daily manna still provide you. God be with you till we meet again. Till we meet, till we meet at Jesus' feet. Till we meet, God be with you till we meet again. God be with you till we meet again. When life's perils they confound you, put his arms unfailing round you. God be with you till we meet again. Till we meet, till we meet at Jesus' feet. Till we meet, God be with you till we meet again. God be with you till we meet again. Keep love's banner floating o'er you. Smite that threatening wave before you. God be with you till we meet again. Till we meet, till we meet at Jesus' feet. Till we meet, God be with you till we meet again. Amen. Let us bow our heads as we have our closing prayer. Dear kind, righteous Father, thank you, Lord, for sending your Spirit to be with us here and online as we worship this Sabbath day. I thank you, Lord, for all the things that we've discussed, the things we've learned from Sabbath school up into this closing moment. Lord, as we go into this untried week, may you help us to remember the things we've studied all day. I ask, Lord, that you might help us to put them into practice, and that as we put them in practice, Lord, that we will share them with others, that they may also gain the blessings of health and the blessings that come with following your natural remedies. I ask, Lord, that you might continue to lead us and guide us and keep us, Lord, within thy care. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you for worshiping with us this Sabbath. Thank you for your comments, your participation, your prayers, and your support. And I ask and pray once again that the Lord will be with you through this untried week. And we look forward to seeing you again next Sabbath. Good night.